Reverend Dr. William Barber, of course, with Repairs of the Breach, also Poor People's Campaign. He is from North Carolina, has been being there dealing with voting irregularities. Last night I was at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where they had a prayer rally, an election eve prayer rally. He could not be there because of what was happening in North Carolina. Reverend Barber, first of all, glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Always rolling, and thank you for what you're doing.
Give us a sense of what you were seeing today as you were dealing with issues there in the state of North Carolina. You and I were texting, and you were seeing voting irregularities.
Well, the first thing we saw here is, before I could even come back to Atlanta, we had places where there were polling sites, or supposed to be polling sites, where there were abandoned buildings, and you couldn't even tell. Like, they put the polling place inside an abandoned building, but if you Google it or your GPS took you there, it would show the abandoned part of the building when they could have easily chosen some other sites. We've had ballots to get too moist today because of the moisture not being able to feed through the system. Long lines. Early this morning, we had a 90-year-old that went to, just anecdotally, went to a polling place, was told it was the wrong polling place. But what she did, interestingly, is got in her car with her daughter and started singing, "Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around," until she found where to vote. But she should have never had to do that. This is the first election rolling in North Carolina since we fought for 6 years against racist gerrymandering and voter suppression and won. One of the crazy things, though, today, and I heard your guest talking about racism, is racism for me is look at the numbers and the disparate impact and what the law says. And right now, one of the ugly parts of what's going on here is that the constitutional amendment to put the photo ID that was rendered surgical racism by the Supreme Court into our state constitution is winning. It's actually winning tonight.
It's winning.
And so that's going to be a great challenge for how we go forward. Forward. We do have a couple of potential House seats that may flip in the Democratic side, and will help add to that number to take over the House. But it's been a battle all day. I'm literally just getting in from a 5-city radio tour.
And Reverend Barber, which constitutional amendment were you saying that is leading right now?
There are 6 constitutional amendments that they're pushing, and one of them was 2 years ago. We beat the extremist Republicans in court, and the courts ruled that their monster voting bill was unconstitutional, and one part of it was a strict photo ID. It was ruled unconstitutional. It was called surgical racism. They put it on the ballot as a constitutional amendment, and it's leading. Now, it hasn't. We aren't at the end of the night, but the very fact that people here are willing to vote for the very racism that the court said, and interestingly enough, for your panel, the Roberts court said it was surgical racism. It was so racist that this court had to say it was racism, and now they've placed it on the ballot as a constitutional amendment, and it is leading currently in the poll, in the numbers.
When we look at those amendments, obviously you have folks who are trying their best to change the Constitution. In Florida, the amendment to Proposition 4 to give voting rights to formerly incarcerated, that seems to be passing as well.
Right.
And
That's
so,
a good one, though.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. And so, but the point there is, progressives are going to have to learn to fight for constitutional amendments.
That's right, and fight hard. And go inside of these state constitutions. A lot of the things in our Constitution have been tested, and I mean tested in a good way. And, I heard your guest talking about Florida and Georgia and Maryland. What's going to be interesting, Roland, is when we look at these numbers, like, for instance, how many Democrats split tickets? Because in reality, in none of these states, North Carolina, Maryland, should Republicans ever win if Democrats stay pure to their party. Number 2, how many black folks stayed home that were registered that didn't vote? How many people stayed home? I mean, there's a lot of analysis to be done as to what really has gone on in this night, particularly in Florida and Georgia and Maryland, with the African Americans running for governor. So on the one hand, you look out in Texas, the white guy, Bork, that's running on the that thing I saw, in one county he was leading. Now, he's still not leading totally, but he's doing much better. But But then in these counties, in these other states where you have 2-to-1 Democrats in Maryland, 2-to-1 in North Carolina, 2-to-1 in Georgia, 2-to-1 in Florida, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens inside the party, not just from the Republican output.
Also, you have a situation where Democrats want to take control of the U.S. House. How is it looking in North Carolina and some of those crucial races for the House?
Well, we've had a massive turnout, and it looks like, for instance, in House Congressional District 4, we may very well pick up that seat and send an African-American woman, which would be one of those 20-some seats that are needed. And we're slowly getting reports again. We have not, the polls are closed, but a lot of the lines were so long they had to extend the hours. So we really don't have true numbers in from North Carolina, but it looks like North Carolina will start trending back. You know, before the racialized gerrymandering, our numbers were 7-6. We had 7 Democrats in the House and 6 Republicans. After the gerrymandering, we went to 10 Republicans in the House and 3 Democrats because of the way that they abused the Voting Rights Amendment and stacked and packed and bleached black voters all over the state. All of it's not gone yet, Roland. You and I were together in Greensboro, and you know A&T State University was split right down the middle in a House district. That had never been the case before. Normally that college was in one district. It was split, thereby undermining the ability of the students to have full impact in just one district. So it looks like that we're going to pick up a couple of seats here and send them forward, but, we're still waiting to see. And I did, if I could, Roland, I was listening to y'all's conversation about racism. I really think that words are not what worries me when it comes. You and I have this conversation all the time. It's a clause in the law that talks about disparate impact. Because you can actually never say the N-word, never say you don't like black people. You can hold a black baby, do all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, look at the policy, whether it's health care, whether it's denying living wages, whether it's even the passing of a $2 trillion tax cut. How do those policies disparately impact black people, minorities? That's what racism really is. And that's the conversation too often people don't want to have about racism. They think it's just somebody that's openly racist, like Trump and whatnot. I'm more worried about the ones that are not openly racist, that won't get up and call themselves a nationalist, but they will not restore the Voting Rights Act, or they'll pass laws that they know are going to have a disparate impact, like denying health care. When you talk about people ending pre-existing conditions, for instance, that is a racist thing. Now, it's not somebody calling you the N-word, but when you look at that, if you deny pre-existing coverage, who's it going to hurt the most in terms of percentages? Black and brown people. It's going to hurt more white people in terms of raw numbers, but it's going to hurt in percentages black and brown people. That's the definition of a racist policy.
I'm looking at what is happening in Texas. NBC has just called the Texas race for Ted Cruz. And then they're saying that the Republicans will definitely, as a result of this, be in control of the United States Senate. Your thoughts?
Well, I pray to God that we get the House. But let me just say, I've been sitting here thinking about this. Anybody that thinks we don't have a real crisis, a moral crisis in this country, this election proves it. It's one thing to elect Donald Trump. It is another thing after 2 years to see all that he's doing and to see the Republicans continue to endorse, enable, and undergird what he's doing. And then those same people can run. And you think, for instance, all of those people in Texas that would have health care if Texas had expanded Medicaid expansion. And many of them tonight still voted for Ted Cruz, voted for his regressivism. That ought to trouble us about America, that you can be this openly xenophobic, racist, mean. You can literally tell people every day, I'm going to take your health care. In other words, I'm going to get rid of what keeps you alive. And they will still somehow vote for hate and meanness more than they will vote for justice and love. And I'm not just talking about party here. we know that wages are down. We know that there are 140 million poor people. We know that the very people that are getting elected in these southern states, Ted Cruz and others, all of the states in the South are high poverty states, voter suppression states, are states where people need health insurance. And yet, for some reason, people keep voting for the very people that are not going to help them. It again shows the power of race, the power of hate. And as you said, Roland, if Democrats don't learn to run candidates that can talk to everybody and can expose this hypocrisy and are willing to take it on, then we will continue to see these people skate by. He didn't win by much for probably a percentage or two, which is better, but it's still a loss when it comes to politics. And it still shows that 50% of the state is willing to vote against their own self-interest.
We also are seeing that in Arizona, we're getting some results, about 40% in, and the Republican is up a couple of points there as well. So we're studying this. Reverend Barber, final comments.
We've got a lot of work to do, and this proves that elections and voting alone are not enough. We have to vote, but we have to build a movement. We have to bring to consciousness, as I keep saying, these 140 million poor people of all different races, colors, creeds, and clergy leaders, and build a movement that votes. We cannot simply wait until an election time to mobilize people, to organize, to register to vote. Parties better learn that. If they don't, we're going to have to teach them in the movement. We can't just bring out what we call closers in the last 2 weeks. That is not what it's going to take. It's going to be hard work, talking to everybody, going to everybody, putting a face on the pain that these policies create, and creating a real moral challenge in this country where people are going to have to make some decisions. Because I would suspect, Roland, even with all of this activity tonight, millions of people stayed home. Millions of people set out. And we have got to have a movement that mobilizes those people. And it will not happen if we just wait till every election season to organize and mobilize. We have to have a movement. That's why I'm fully committed to the Poor People's Campaign, a national call, moral revival, of doing this long-term work that has to be done. And I want to thank you for all your help in doing it.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, one of our partners here, Trans Real Estate. If you're looking for a hot new investment opportunity, I have two things I want you to think about: legal marijuana and crowdfunding. Now, you just let that sink into your head for a second. Our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate have created a unique opportunity for everyday investors like you to get in the game for a minimum of $300 up to $10,000. Look, you get in where you can fit in. If you want to find out more information, go to marijuanastock.org. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.